Voters in Winhall will be heading back to the Mountain School for their in-person traditional town meeting on Tuesday, March 7th, after a couple of years of meeting at the town's transfer station garage. Once there, they'll get to weigh in on budgets proposed by their school district and municipal government to determine their tax rates and other outcomes laid out in the town and school budgets and reports. On the school side, the tax rate will be decreasing as a result of education spending per pupil dropping by a little over 6%. At the same time, the town's common level of appraisal, a measurement of a property's fair market value compared to its town appraised value, has dropped by nearly 15%, which has an upward impact on the tax rate and eventually results in a tax rate of about $1.58. School Board Chairwoman Jennifer Samuelson explains.
So the good news is our tax rate's it's projected to go down this year. So I think our residents should be pretty happy about that. One of the biggest drivers of that is that the property yield has gone up, which actually serves to bring our ultimate equalized tax rate down. So I think that really had a lot to do with why our tax rate's going down. The other thing is the number of pupils that we have in Winhall is lower than what we had anticipated last year when we set our budget. So that's also allowing us to have a little bit of a surplus that we can put into the tax stabilization fund. We're so small that having a few students move away tends to have a outsized impact on our budget, and this year it's a positive change. So we've got a couple of articles also on the warning that may adjust the tax rate, but going into town meeting, we're anticipating a tax rate of just over $1.58. So again, really on the lower side of our historic tax rates. I think one of the things that's going to be really important for our voters to understand is that this year is a gift. I don't know that it's going to continue going forward in future years for a couple of reasons. One is that property yield rate is so high this year. I don't expect that will continue, but you never know. But the other thing that will definitely happen beginning with next fiscal year, we're setting the budget for FY24 and effective FY25, the pupil weights will change. And so Sue Wilburn from the BRSU has done a really good job of calculating out what our tax rate would look like under the new pupil weight system, and it will definitely go up. The other thing is from FY25 to FY29, will be capped at a 5% increase per year. But even if we keep it at $1.58 this year, if you multiply a 5% increase over the next 5 years, at the end of that fifth year, that'll have our tax rate over $2, which is kind of at the higher end of where it's been over the past several years. Not quite in the middle, but not as high, not as absolutely high as it's been. But that really does speak to thinking thoughtfully about our budget for FY24, because it will have, these ripple effects for the next several years.
Winhall doesn't operate its own school and has a school choice model that compensates families for sending their children to either the Mountain School Winhall or other neighboring schools through high school. There will be an advisory article in the school district warning asking if voters want to continue supporting this model.
Well, that is something that we are going to be discussing at town meeting. We're in a really good position right now with our tax rate. We do have an advisory article on our warning. It's Article 9, where we're asking folks to come in and vote from the floor to voice their support or not for our current K-12 choice model. In the past, we found that this is something that has worked for us and that our voters have really preferred. But we thought it would be a good inflection point and just capture that sentiment to see, if voters are still supporting the educational choice model that we have. So there is a petition that has been warned seeking an increased tuition to the Mountain School. So we received, the requisite number of signatures. We did place that on the article, on the warning. It's Article 4. And I anticipate that representatives from the Mountain School will be able to speak more to this issue at town meeting. But again, it's just really important that people show up on March 7th because we vote from the floor. So if you're not there, your vote won't be heard.
Over on the municipal side, voters will see a budget that calls for about $4.4 million to be raised by taxes, compared to about $3.7 million last year. and the proposed tax rate rising by a little under 10 cents per $100 of assessed property value. Town Administrator Lissa Stark took us inside the proposed town budget. One thing voters will notice is the large difference in the bottom line totals of this year's budget compared to last year, about a $13 million difference. But there's a reason for that, she said.
It's a proposed roughly 9-cent increase in the tax rate. So we're looking at going to about 60, almost 62 cents. And we were at 52, 53 almost last year. So I'll back up and say that right at the beginning of the revenues, when people get their proposed budget, we are going to include all of the monies that we pay. It's basically pass-through monies that goes to the state for education dollars and to the school district for education dollars. So we're putting those all into the taxes line item. That first thing that you see at the top, it is almost $17 million. That is an actual, figure that we have kind of come up with there. But usually what we do is we net out all the payments that we pass through and we put them in that line. So it basically looks like it's a lot less money. So like last year it was 3.7 million, but we really did take in, 15 or 16 million. So where people will notice the difference is in the very beginning of the expenses. Under the general expenses, we have broken out that, the state education dollars are roughly 7.7 million that we pass through to the state. And then we pass through roughly 4.8 million to the supervisory union on behalf of the Winhall School District. So those are pretty significant amounts that are now shown more clearly instead of netted out. We're all looking at inflation being ever increasing. So a lot of our numbers had to go up, to compensate for inflation or to account for inflation. We are putting a substantial amount of money into the fire and rescue equipment fund for the new fire truck that we are going to need to purchase very, very soon. So, that expenditure alone is $275,000, and it's usually roughly $60,000. So that's fairly substantial. And also we've been putting more money into the Stratton Access Road Reserve Fund for culvert upgrades and repairs to the access road. So that's another $300,000 expense that is fairly substantial. But for the most part, we're talking about inflationary raises to bring us up that, to that almost 9 cent or roughly 9 cent increase in the tax rate.
And then just moving on to the warning, you have that one article there about hiring a part-time or sharing a rec director with a couple of your neighboring towns. I wonder if you could explain a little bit about that and what's going on with that idea.
This a group of towns have come together. We were approached by, I think, Londonderry to basically propose that we hire together collectively a recreation director that would, and I'm looking at kind of the scope here as I look down, basically to be in charge of handling administration of some of the recreation facilities and coordinating youth programs and getting the word out about what programs are available and that that type of thing to kind of like help promote recreation in the area. And we, the other, I know that Londonderry is one of the other towns, but there are a number of other towns that are kind of in on this collaborative. So Londonderry, Landgrove, Peru, Weston, and Winhall at this moment are kind of on the list as being some close-knit towns that could probably work together to share this this one rec director position. So that's why the $25,000 is in the on the warning.
Winhall's town meeting will be held on Tuesday, March 7th, and will be starting at 10 a.m. to transact the business in the town warning, which will be done from the floor as well as through Australian ballot for elected officials and ballot articles. On March 7th, polls will be open from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Any voter unable to come to the polls may request an absentee ballot by contacting the town clerk no later than 1 p.m. on Monday, March 6th. For the GNAT-TV News Project, I'm Andrew McKeever.